thank you for joining the Northern Miner at the AME's annual Roundup event in Vancouver. The Golden Triangle of Northern British Columbia is a historical mining hotbed and is seeing a resurgence of activity. Here to tell us more about that is Skeena Gold and Silver's Vice President of Investor Relations, Galina Mellinger. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here, and it's such a good update from the site visit that we had this past summer when you visited Eskay Creek.
Yes, that was so insightful. Thank you. Okay, so let's kick it off by talking about Eskay Creek itself. It's got a very rich mining history. Please talk through the history of the asset.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. And I'll start by saying, I'm not personally a history buff myself, but the history of Eskay Creek is absolutely remarkable. It is a legendary asset. It was previously owned and operated by Barrick as an underground mine. And in its past life, it was actually the highest grade gold mine in the world. So the ore was so rich that they were basically mining using a method called direct shipment of ore. And it wasn't until several years later that they installed a processing plant using gravity and flotation. But the average mine gold grade was 45 grams per ton. The average mine silver grade was north of 2,000 grams per ton. And the cutoff grade was 15 grams per ton.
That's crazy.
So it really begged the question for us, if the cutoff grade is 15 grams per ton, what's really left behind? And we have a saying in the company, it goes like, what's the best place to find a mine? In the shadows and headframes of an old mine. So that was really the premise for Skeena. We're looking at reconceptualizing Eskay Creek as a massive open pit operation. We're targeting initial production that's elevated in the first 5 years of 450,000 ounces of gold equivalent metal with production in the foreseeable future in 2027.
Okay, so last year was a milestone year for the company. You closed a major financing and you moved forward with pre-construction activities at site. Please tell us more about these components of the company's strategy.
So I will backtrack and just say that we've been advancing Eskay Creek up the value chain since 2017. So we've drilled over 200,000 meters. We've outlined a 4.6 million ounce reserve with a 12-year mine life, and we've put out multiple technical reports to date on the project. The most recent one being the 2023 definitive feasibility study. And the mine plan for the DFS really envisioned an incredible asset. So again, 450,000 ounces equivalent coming out of the gates in years 1 through 5, backed by a very robust grade profile of 5.5 grams per ton in the first 5 years, which is triple the open pit global average. And one can appreciate that obviously this robust grade profile features very impressive financial numbers. So just to kind of put out some financial numbers, if we were to use spot prices today, this mine would generate over $700 million in after-tax free cash flow per year, EBITDA north of $1 billion per year, again in the first 5 years. So as a management team and also aligned with the interests of our global investors, we had a real motivation to bring this project on stream as quickly as possible. And so this past summer, we kicked off our early works program, and there was 4 main components within that. The first one was accessing and clearing the technical sample area, which is a fancy word for initiating small-scale mining activity in the proposed pit. We advanced 2 roads, we advanced the mine infrastructure pad with foundational work, and I may add that the majority of the bulk earthworks were all done in-house by our own project development team to mitigate some of the cost pressures that we see with contractors. And aside from all of the productive work at the project level, we've also advanced procurement. So we've secured about $70 million in major mobile equipment, major mill equipment. And that's coming in right in line with the estimates outlined in the DFS.
All right. And so let's talk about that financing package that you closed in July or mid last year. What does that entail?
Yeah, so that was a big step forward in terms of de-risking. It was basically $1 billion Canadian of committed capital against a projected initial capital expenditure estimate of about 716 Canadian. So we are overfunded. There was 3 components within it. There was an equity piece for 100 million US, there was a gold stream for 200 million, and then there was senior secured debt plus a cost contingency in the same shape and form as the gold stream. At the start of this year, about 2 weeks ago, we announced our initial drawdown on the gold stream. And this was important because the release of the gold stream financing was subject to the bulk technical sample permit, which we announced on December 16th. And the bulk technical sample permit allows us to proceed and grants us authorizations for all of the planned development activities in 2025. And the gold stream for 200 million covers all the required capital to proceed with those activities. So as we continue to draw down on this stream throughout the course of this year, what it's signaling to the market is that we're continuing to advance the project on schedule.
Perfect. All right. So do you want to just talk us through some of the major accomplishments of 2024 then?
Yeah, it was such a great year. So obviously the project financing and the early works program. And then we formally entered the environmental assessment process in BC. So we submitted the initial application in August. It was a 15,000 page application. Wow. So very thorough. And then in March of this year, we're submitting the final application, which means that we could be in possession of an EA certificate in Q4 of this year. And that's kind of like the main hurdle to overcome for a company to say we're in full-scale construction. Out of the EA certificate flows out your major Mines Act permits and all of your other construction permits.
So that's a major milestone to achieve this year. All right, well, there you have it. That was Skeena Gold and Silver's Vice President for Investor Relations, Galina Mellinger. Thank you for joining us.